Howdy. This is a Hildryn video. I have been waiting far too long to make a Hildryn build video, but it's because I wanted things to be just right, and if they weren't, then it wasn't going to be good enough. But I think I've gotten to the point that I've got just the right build that I was looking for Hildryn. She's gotten quite a few things to buff her in the past several big patches. New arcanes, changes, augments, all sorts of snazzy stuff. And she's gone from being a questionable frame to a very spicy frame, or at least in most content, that is. Now, for the uninitiated of our great almighty muscle mombi, let us go over her base abilities. So, first of all, Hildryn is shield based. Very, very, very shield based. She has no energy in her kit at all. She just has very, very high shields. Hildryn's full shield gate is high. After her shields are depleted, she is invulnerable to damage up to 3.5 seconds. Now, the normal shield gate capacity, or cap for it, is 2.5 seconds, and that requires 1,150 shields max to be able to get that big of a shield gate. Well, Hildryn has 3.5 seconds, and that's really freaking good. And because of how high her shields are, even if you like lower the shield count or you raise the shield count, she's always going to have that 3.5 seconds. Okay, so very, very nice. And like I said, she uses shields instead of energy. And to equate that, so it's like not unbelievably cheap, it's 10 times the cost. So if you say put an ability on her with the helmet and it costs 50 energy, then it will now cost 500 shields instead. Now, her first ability is a exalted weapon called Balefire. It drains 50 shields per shot, 100 to 200 shields depending on the charge, because you can charge it, and it does 500 to 1500 damage depending on the charge level with an explosion radius of 3 meters. Now, this is modded separately because it is an exalted weapon, and it scales multiplicatively with range and the explosive range mod on the weapon. What is it called again? I always forget. Primed Fulmination, yes. So if you have 100% range and 44% blast radius from Primed Fulmination, you'll go from 3 meters to 6 from the range, and then you'll get another 44% from Primed Fulmination, which is going to give you hard math. Your boy's really bad at that. What is it? 2.64, I think? An extra 2.6, so you're at 8.64 meter radius, which is very, very nice. And that's just with 100% range and Primed Fulmination. And since this goes through walls and stuff, it's really good for nuking very large areas if you build into range. Her second ability is Pillage. This costs 127.5 shields to cast, has a radius of 8 meters, though that's not very relevant because it also has a duration of 2 seconds, and that affects how far it goes out because it's how long the pulse lasts. So you cast the pulse, and the longer the duration is, the longer it keeps going, and then it comes back to you. And will drain enemy armor or shields. It prioritizes shields over armor. It cannot drain both at the same time, and it will drain exactly how much it says, and when it comes back to you, it returns, the duration ends. It will give you all the armor or shields converted into your own shields, and that can go into over shields. This is affected by range, but that's very irrelevant because duration is the main thing that will affect how far it goes. Though, if you do build heavily into duration, you're going to want to start manually recasting the ability to get your shields back in time. Otherwise, you'll cast it and then you gotta wait like 6 seconds before it comes back if you have like 3-inch duration. And that might be too late to get your shields back, because you can recast this to immediately end pillage wherever it's at in its like distance from how far it's gone out, and just pull it back to you immediately so you get those shields back. And the strength affects how much it drains. So if you have 400% strength, you can drain 100% of an enemy's shields or armor. Now, it's a little weird because when draining armor, it is additive, but when draining shields, it's multiplicative. So if you have 200 strength, okay, cast it on an enemy, half their armor is gone, cast it again, bam, they have 0 armor. Got 50%, if you cast it with the same strength, right, 50% drain on an enemy with full shields, Drain, they have 50% shields. Cast again, now they're at 25% shields. So it's a little weird like that. Doesn't matter too much because enemies with shields are rarely an issue. You want this to be able to strip armor or just give yourself shields back. You're not really using it to drain enemy shields usually. Now, 400% strength to get a full armor drain is a little rough at times, but you don't need a full strip nearly as much as you used to in the past. And you can also lower that to 328% strength needed for a full strip if you use corrosive projection, since the armor strip is additive. Her third ability, hang on, I have to actually switch to this thing right here so I can show it. Haven creates a shield aura around allies. Enemies that approach shielded allies will take damage. This ability is total dookie doo-doo water. You'll likely end up subsuming it off for something else. Now, you cast it and it is an active ability, okay? That means you will not be able to regenerate shields passively while it's active, even if you go a while without taking damage. It also drains shields faster based off of how many allies it's connected to. It also drains shields faster based off of how many enemies it's connected to. It's also affected by range. All of the buffs it gives do not apply to yourself, only to your teammates. If someone is running a low shield gate build, right, they have like catalyzing shields on, you can completely screw them over with this, and you will run out of shields very, very quickly. So let's say I've got all of these enemies here, and I'm down here, I cast Haven. You can see it starts draining my... No, wait, it doesn't, because I have no companion on. It's fine. No, assume there's a companion and it was draining, right? Every companion or enemy, it will tag and drain. So look, if there's a bunch of enemies, it's going to start draining. Now, I have a bunch of stuff on right now, so it's affecting how fast it drains. So don't take that at face value. Usually it's going to be a lot faster draining than what it is right now. And it's also going to stack the draining with your fourth ability. And when that happens, you can see it starts going down very, very quickly. And that is not something that we want to be happening. So most of the time, you'll end up getting rid of this ability. Now, finally, we have Aegis Storm. 100 shields to cast. It drains 25 shields per second and another 25 shields per enemy it tags, similar to her third ability. And it has a radius of 15 meters at base, which is affected by range. It does 200 damage per second. That's irrelevant and basically does nothing. And the slam damage also doesn't matter. So you cast this ability, it's channel ability, and you start flying around. You cannot use normal weapons while you are flying around. It will automatically cast Balefire, and that is the only weapon you can use. You can, however, cast other abilities. You used to not be able to do that, but now you can, be it her base abilities or helmet abilities. Either one you can cast. And because it's drained shields so fast, you want to keep your shields up, but that's what we have Pillage for, because if we just have our fourth ability up, we can manage the shields mostly fine with Pillage. Now, the range on it, the 15 meters at base, it will float enemies, like they become all floaty-woaty, they get held up in the air. It makes for very easy headshots for your teammates. You don't need headshots though, because Balefire cannot even get headshots, it's purely AoE. But it is nice for some level of crowd control as well. It does not work on enemies that have any sort of like, CC immunity, aka overguard enemies, right? Eximus, but that's kind of a given at this point. Sad face emoji, maybe one day. And that is the gist of her abilities. Her base stats are 270 health, 1380 shields, 315 armor, 0 energy, and a 1.05 sprint speed. She also, here, just so that it's not going to be messy-wessied up, she has a fancy dash, you can see. I very much like this dash with their little, like, hover things. Very, very cool. Oh, yeah, and while you're in her 4, you can dash around with your parkour thing. So parkour velocity can help you be a lot faster while you're in this, because it is quite slow, and you cannot fly as high as you want. It will make you start falling. So don't fall off the map with this. You can get screwed over by doing that. That is the gist of Hildryn. Now, let's get on to the actual build for Hildryn. First, I don't need to mess with that. Okay, so this is a fairly high investment build, but that's kind of the point. That's most of the kind of builds I do anyways. For our Archon shards, we have 2 Archon shards for strength, because strength is very nice, helps give us more damage, it double dips in some stuff, helps us strip more armor, etc, etc. Now 2 is what you need to hit some breakpoints in certain builds, like if we go to here, a build like this, if you have 2 red Talforge shards for strength, plus transient fortitude and blind rage maxed and umbral intensify, you will have 328 strength, which is exactly enough to get a full strip for armor if you slap on corrosive projection. Very nice to have. But the build we'll be using isn't going to be going for 328 strength, but still, that's something worth noting. Then we have 1 for casting speed, because she does have a little bit of slow casting speeds at first, but only 1 shard is needed to really make it feel good enough. I don't feel like you need more than that. And then we have 2 shards for parkour velocity to help make her very, very fast, especially while in her 4, because she is a very slow Warframe, and I don't like being slow, especially in my very fast-paced ninja game. We like to be really fast as fuck. Now, for the build on her, here we go, all these mommy builds. We're doing the mommy build today. Now, I have 2 different builds, and I'm going to mostly focus on this one. Actually, no, technically it's 3, but mostly we're going to focus on this one. 1 is just for general use. It will work in most stuff. 1 is for specifically infested, since they don't have armor usually. And the last one is for level cap. But the level cap one's a little iffy, because Hildryn's not made for that. Anyways, we have aerodynamic in our X-less slot, because it gives us 24% damage reduction while we're airborne, and we're going to always be in her 4. Aviator in the X-less for another 40% DR. You can go primed sure-footed if you wanted to, or normal sure-footed, but that's only going to help when you're not in your 4, because when you're in your 4, you're immune to getting knocked down like that. But if you're running around normally in between places, it can be nice to have primed sure-footed sometimes. But I prefer Aviator here just to make us very tanky. Primed redirection, because shields equals energy and shields equals more tankiness. So you want a lot of shields. We also have Boreal's Hatred for even more shields, a little bit of extra ability efficiency, and another 20% DR while airborne. Something to note though is aerodynamic, Aviator, and Boreal's Hatred, as well as like every other DR source in this game, is multiplicative. None of these are additive together. And in the case of DR, that's bad but balanced. We also have adaptation to give us up to another 90% DR to different damage types, even more tankiness. Primed continuity for some ability duration, because it is getting reduced a bit by transient fortitude. We don't need high ability duration, but having a little more is nice, so we don't drain shields quite as fast, and we can get our pillage to go farther if we needed to. And we don't want negative duration, because that's a bit of a yikes. Transient fortitude and umbral intensify for strength, because we like having strength. Stretch for a bit of a range. You can go all in on range to just have a huge nuke radius, especially because it's multiplicative with primed fulmination on the weapon, but we don't really need that. It's not necessary most of the time. It can be fun, but it's not necessary. I'd rather have a bit more tankiness for the right situations when you start to take a lot of damage sometimes. And lastly, Aegis Gales the Augment. This is a must-have. If you do not have this, Hildryn's gonna kind of suck doo-doo. It makes it so that her Balefire has extra scaling based off of her max shields, specifically while you are in her 4th ability. And it also gives it an alt fire that makes it shoot in a burst of 4 shots instead of 1 shot at a time. You will always use the alt fire and be shooting it while you are in Aegis Storm. Never use Balefire normally, and never just like do a normal charge shot or a normal shot or a charge shot. The charge shot is wildly inefficient. It got massively buffed a while ago, but it's still trash, so you need Aegis Scale. For the Arcanes, it's completely up to you. I like Arcane Aegis and Barrier here because it's funny. Aegis just gives tons of shield regen when it procs. You're invincible really for the 12 seconds when it procs, and you're always taking shield damage. And Barrier is here just so that every now and then your shields will just come back instantly. The combination of the two, plus we have Pillage, means lots and lots of shields. Something that is a little annoying is if you run out of shields completely, your shield gate will proc, yes, so you're unlikely to die, but it will forcefully end your abilities because they cost shields and you can't cast them without shields. So that's kind of a yikes. I do wish it would not end them until your shield gate ended. That would help fix some of her issues and make her a lot more fluid to play, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, if ever. We have our Helminth being Sickening Pulse, and you might be wondering why you would want to run this over something, I didn't mean to back out, like Roar instead, or Zav's Whisper or something, and there's a good reason for that, and that is it's going to help our damage more in the right cases, because there are some issues with loadout building, right? Like if you're trying to make a whole build with Hildryn, there are some issues with priming and using your companion, and it's because you're flying around all the time. You're up in the air. You're not right next to the enemy. She also drains shields and not energy, and that's an issue. And we'll go over that in just a sec after I finish explaining what Sickening Pulse does. Sickening Pulse has a range and a duration very similar to Pillage. It works almost exactly the same in that mechanic. I do believe it goes through walls though, whereas Pillage does not. Pillage can go around objects, right? It's like its own field, sort of. But I'm fairly certain Sickening Pulse goes through walls. I've tested it several times before in and out of mission. So if I'm wrong about that, then I'm just schizophrenic. Now what it does is every time it hits an enemy, it will max out their status procs to 10 or adds 10 statuses and refresh the status duration, with the exception of Slash, Heat, or Toxin, in which case it will just double the procs and then refresh the duration. This is very important because if the enemy, say, has 1 proc of Viral and you cast this, they suddenly have 10 procs of Viral, meaning significantly more damage. Now, Roar would be more damage if you're doing mostly status damage, but we're not doing mostly status damage with Balefire, and we need this for consistent priming, which you'll see in just a sec when I explain her issues with the priming. So, on to the Companion. The Companion is... Wait, we aren't even in the build. Here we go. Snoo. We are going to be using Skrittles, which is the robot dog thing. What the fuck is it called? Hound. Yes, that thing. And that is because it has a very good status application all over the place. Something it lacks, though, is maxing out said statuses. It can apply basically every status in the game. You got all of these, right? Applying all the stats. I'm not going to go too in depth into how a hound works here. I suggest watching a video. If you want me to make a video on that specifically, then I guess let me know. But all this stuff, it's going to apply all these statuses, but it's not going to be applying the maximum number of statuses, which is an issue because we want max viral for as much damage as possible. And higher magnetic damage does help deal more damage to overguard and shields and stuff. So that's also very nice to have. Now, instead of Hound, what I would normally do is they use Nautilus or a Sentinel in general, just a Sentinel, because with Sentinels you can slap on Tazzycore or Hellstrom and then use Duplex Bond and Manifold Bond, and all of a sudden everything is at max stacks all of the time. Very, very good for priming. But this does not work because A, the Sentinel is right next to you. You're up in the air and most of the time too far away from enemies, and they're being held up, and it's weird with the Sentinel trying to target them, and it's not going to hit anything. Now that could be fixed with Duplex Bond because these guys roam around. You have to consume energy to spawn the guys with Duplex Bond. So you literally cannot make use of this with Hildryn. There is a bug, however, where if you put this on and you are in the Simulacrum specifically and you pick up energy to get shields back, sometimes it's going to spawn them. Oh, maybe they fixed it. Oh, they might have fixed it. It used to spawn them. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it does not do that in mission. Also, yeah, when you pick up energy, it refunds shields instead of energy because she has shields. So that is a bug. Don't believe in that. And that's the issue. For other ways of viral, you could say Pans of Opophyla. but when you're moving around really fast all the time and in the air, I feel like the Panzer is really inconsistent. I struggle to get consistent viral procs on everything, and that is also not really something we want to be happening. We want consistent viral procs, which is why the Hound works very nicely here, except the problem of we're only going to be applying one of each stack, and we want max magnetic and viral, which is why we have Sickening Pulse. Bam, problem solved. Also, it just means extremely good consistent priming for the whole team because it's applying the debuffs to the enemy, so your teammates will be able to benefit from your godlike priming as well, so maybe your teammates will appreciate that. The build is very straightforward. Guardian, super important here. Helps us get our shield back instantly if they run out. Manifold Bond, which lets us spam the crap out of Guardian if it needs to. Plus all of our other things, right? We got Synergized Prospectus, Repo Audit, Reflex Denial. Make sure you put them in this order because the higher it is on the top and left priority, as if reading a book, it will prioritize that ability over others then. And we want Guardian to be first, then Repo Audit, then Synergized Prospectus, then Reflex Denial. Synth Deconstruct isn't needed here. You can put something else here. I honestly wasn't really sure. Wait a second, this is the wrong build. I'm stupid. Here we go. There is no Synth Deconstruct in this build. Momentous Bond is here because it gives us more elements for even more priming for the ones we don't have. And it lets us get the guy back faster if he dies because we just kill like 2x miss, 3x miss, whatever, and he'll be back very, very quickly. The rest is just, you know, standard stuff, vacuum, accelerate, deflection, yada yada. And then Reinforced Bond plus Calculated Redirection because you want to have high enough shields to actually proc Reinforced Bond for another 60% fire rate, which will affect our Balefire because Balefire has really bad fire rate at base. And I already showed the weapon, you know, just all you want is a lot of statuses. That's all that matters. Now, for the weapons, we should go over Balefire first. For Balefire, we have quite a few expensive mods here. Prime Fulmination for more range. Lethal Torrent because we want Fire Rain Multi-Shot. Galvanized Diffusion for multi-shot. Hornet Strike for base damage. Pistol Pestilence for stats, chance, and Toxin. And it combines with Prime Heated Charge to make gas. And we want Prime Heated Charge for big PP elemental damage, and Prime Convulsion for even more big PP elemental damage because that's another, you know, multiplier we can shoot up with these two Prime mods. And Prime Target Cracker for crit damage. Our crit chance is doo-doo, but that's fine. We're going to be using secondary Enervate, which I'll explain in a second. I have Lethal Momentum because it is a projectile, and I don't know what else to put in this slot. It's not necessary. It's just kind of there. The reason we have Gas and Electric is because neither one of them has negative on anything important. Gas does have negative against Scaldra nowadays, but Scaldra, they melt like butter anyways. So in most cases, it's not going to matter. In some cases, it's going to just give you big PP damage against like the Murmur, okay, which is nice if you're facing them, or the Tech Rot or the Infested, which is, you face those guys a lot, right? Tech Rot, Gas, extra damage, very nice. Now, how secondary Enervate works is on hit increases crit chance by 10%, and it resets after 6 big critical hits. Big critical hits means a super crit, which is an orange crit, and an orange crit, you probably already know, is a crit after the normal tier crit. So if you have a 150% crit chance, you're guaranteed to get a crit, and then a 50% chance for a orange crit. And it goes crit, orange crit, red crit, and then everything after that is also red, and it's just like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 red crits, etc. You can even get to like tier 48 red crit technically. Funny video if you know which one I'm talking about that somebody did. Can't remember his name though. Anyways, it is a 10% additive, flat amount of crit chance. So it will build up very, very quickly, but after you get 6 orange crits, it resets. In practice though, it will give pretty consistent crits, so you don't really have to worry too much about that. Yeah, we're not gonna shoot anything yet with it, not quite yet. But that's the build for Balefire, very straightforward. Now, for the rest of the stuff, primary, use whatever you want. I just use this because it's good for killing acolytes, and I mean, gas damage, Strun and Karnon, need I say more. Very straightforward build. I've shown this in a lot of videos. The main point is that I don't need to get a ton of kills to get all my stacks, so I can just kill like one guy to proc Vendetta, and I have most of my damage available except for a couple stacks of Galvanized Hell. And gas damage, is very effective against acolytes, plus this is a projectile-based AoE attack, which is also very effective against acolytes. It ignores their damage attenuation. The secondary is important if you want to maximize. We have Amalgam Barrel Diffusion here because it makes us dodge faster. Might as well have faster dodge speed. Lots of stuff for just like general damage. It is the what's this called normally? Grimoire. It's the Grimoire because it's a good buffing weapon. Prime Fulmination, so the alt fire can hit lots of enemies. So it's easier to proc Foam Invocation, which gives us strength up to 60%. Secondary Fortifier, just so it can melt Overguard and give us Overguard when we use it, even though we're not using it super often. Lock Canticle, just for some extra fire rate briefly. This does not snapshot. However, strength buffs do snapshot when you cast your abilities, like your 4 and your 1, which is very important. The rest of the build doesn't really matter though. Using this just for the strength buff more than anything else. Then we have the Furax Wraith. I do have the Incarnon. That doesn't matter. You can use a normal level 0 Furax. All that matters is that you have Amalgam Furax body count on. This will give us an extra 45% fire rate to secondary weapons, and Balefire counts as a secondary. If you don't want to use this, you can run something that gives parkour velocity like Telos Boltis or Praetos, but I prefer the extra fire rate because it feels very nice. And again, none of this matters, right? I had this weird build for combo before they changed how some stuff worked. You can kind of use that or you used to be able to use it with, what is it? Secondary Outburst. I don't think it works anymore though. Then we have our Focus Path. Sorry that I'm so freaking slow right now. My brain is not operating very well. For the Focus Path, you really just have two main options. You either go Maturite, so you can get the extra casting speed, which isn't needed, but it's there, I guess, if you want it, but mostly for Sling Strength for an extra 40% strength that you can snapshot, and it's just generally good for killing stuff in your operator if you do die to res yourself, or for killing stuff in Void Cascade. Otherwise, I would go with Vazarin because you can heal yourself, you can get health back, heal teammates, and get a fuck ton of iframes for yourself and teammates if you need it. So either go Vazarin if you want more tankiness and survivability, or Maturite if you want more damage. We will be using Maturite first. Your operator arcanes and weapon don't really matter much, so I don't even know what I have equipped on right now, to be totally honest. Now, before I show everything all together, I do want to show secondary Enervate working on its own without like buffs and stuff in the way, making it weird or inconsistent. So, making sure you see we've got the same build going. Now we're going to come over to these guys and shoot them. 5% base crit, remember that? I forgot they're already armor stripped. Whoopsies, they died a little bit too fast. What the Ohio, right? All those kids will appreciate whatever that means. Look at that. It builds up and resets very, very quickly. Not much of an issue. Now, there is a cap to how many damage numbers are on screen, so there are actually more non-crits than what you're seeing here. It just prioritizes crits to put on screen. So do keep that in mind. I can't remember where the setting is to fix that, and it changes how the damage numbers look, and I don't like how they look normally. So that is something very, very much worth noting. Otherwise, it would be like disingenuous to say it's always critting because it looked like that. But you did see that it's still getting a lot of crits at the very least, even if they're not all crits. And now we switch back to the Snoo build. Come over to these guys, and they're going to die very, very quickly. Simulate! Spawn in. Please attack them, my guy. Thank you. And then we shabam, and now we. Oh look, they're all dead. What? AC 130 Hildryn? What? So this build has a lot of survivability. You're pretty much never going to die up to like level 4,000 or so, I feel like. I've used this build in a lot of stuff, but I can't remember the exact levels. The last time I used it in like a long level mission was the circuit, right? Pretty sure it was around like 3,000 or 4,000 before I started to struggle with surviving. So very good for that. Now, before I go into a mission and show this off, this video is already going to be like 30 minutes long probably at this point. I'm going to quickly, briefly go over the other things if you want to run something else. Okay, if you're facing infested, pillage doesn't work. You need shields. I would not run Hildryn against infested, but if you're hard committed, then you're probably going to want something to get shields back, in which case you subsume condemn on. There you go. You're not going to have as many status procs, but that doesn't really matter for infested because they're so easy to melt anyways, so you don't need sickening pulse. So just slap condemn on as your helmet, bam, there you go, you can get shields back now. Other than that, if you want to go for level cap, I have this different build. And in this one, I do have Roar on, but this is because it's a slightly older build, though I would still try to go for the other one instead, maybe Sickening Pulse and stick with Skriddles, right? Try to stick with the same build for the most part. It's just you switch out all of the damage reduction stuff for stuff that isn't DR related, because DR is worthless at level cap. So you would go like, you know, Parkour Velocity here, Combat Discipline, plus Arcane Avenger, so you can get extra crit, Rolling Guard for even more iframes, etc. And that's basically it for that. Oh, well, and for survivability, because surviving with the shield problem at level cap is a really big issue on Hildryn. We have Avenger to give us crit rate. We'll have way less crit in general, but we switched out the Arcane for secondary Fortifier so we can get a ton of Overguard. Very, very important to keeping you alive. This build is going to be infinitely better than the other one if you're doing level cap, and it's going to be one of the only consistent ways to not die in level cap, though you are still going to have to put in a fair bit of effort to not die. So that's that. Oh yeah, and all of the shards on this Hildryn for level cap are strength specifically, just to maximize damage, since damage can be an issue at level cap with Hildryn. Back to the Snoo build and into a mission we are going to go. So I will see you in mission. We are in mode survival. Wow. You know, there's a bit of an issue, annoying thing when trying to show stuff off, and it's that the hound's a little too good for its own good, and it tends, look, I don't even gotta do anything. Stuff kind of just dies on its own because the hound's really good. I mean, it's not like dying instantly, but it's still quite strong for a companion. So, and it's not even built for killing stuff right now. So take all of this with a massive grain of hound. Now, I forgot to show in the Simulacrum how you go about, like, you know, getting all your buffs up so that when you cast your 4, everything is snapshot. But that's very easy. Just, you know, hit the ground, get that, whatchamacallit buff going. Help me. Someone help me. Power strength. Yes. Sling strength. Look at me. I know words. And then use the alt fire on your Grimoire. Watch for it to hit 60% on the top right. It hit 60% instantly. And then cast your 4. There we go. Job done. Now we have very, very high strength, and you can just float around murdering everything. It shouldn't be an issue. You're practically invincible in anything under level 1000. Slightly above that, you're going to have to kind of sort of try a little bit, but even then, not really. Hildryn's very good if you just want to, like, exist and not die and be a jet fighter of death. Very, very funny. Also, I mean, come on, it's Hildryn. She's a muscle mommy. What more could you ask for in life? I do have a slight issue when it comes to Sickening Pulse and its casting speed. It's a bit annoying because it makes you stuck in place while you cast it. It's not that big of a deal because you don't need to cast it constantly, but it can be a tad bit annoying. But if you keep up your in and out of your operator to get the casting speed, what's this buff called again? Power transfer, then it's going to be a lot faster. So, you know, do that if you feel the need to, though oftentimes you don't even need Sickening Pulse. I have it here and I explained why it's important, but most people do normal content, in which case you don't need the extra damage of maxing out all of the procs. It's not that important for average gameplay, and most people just do average gameplay. Now, if you are watching this, right, if you're watching this, especially if you're not like a regular around here, let me know, do you really, does anyone actually care about in-gameplay mission? I know people say they do, and if there's no gameplay, there other people will be like, oh, there's no gameplay. Oh, whoops, I wasn't watching my shields. But honestly, I feel like gameplay in mission is so meaningless because every single video I do where I show the gameplay in the mission, everything dies basically just as fast. Like it dies. I mean, I guess if you wanted to like get down to the nitty gritty stuff like KPM and stuff, but let's be honest here, most people don't care or keep track of a build's KPM, right? And even if it has, oh, this build's got 140 KPM, if you're like doing all this stuff, a lot of the time your average Warframe player is not going to be keeping track of that and keeping all their buffs up and everything to be that at that high of a KPM anyway. So it's not even always consistent to give said number when it's not even always going to be that way. I don't know. I just feel like everything's going to die as soon as you see it anyways. Does it really matter that much to show gameplay? But I know some people say that like it's really important, or they care about seeing it in mission or whatever. And especially people that are like anti-simulacrum. Oh, you only showed in the simulacrum, and that's not representative of real gameplay. There's very few situations in which seeing the damage numbers in the simulacrum isn't good enough to be able to tell if it's going to work in a mission, right? Like if you played this game for more than, well, out of the tutorial, honestly, you should start to get a grasp for how damage works in the game. So it's not really an issue to try to figure out, oh, it's doing this much damage in the simulacrum. Yeah, you got to factor in consistency of debuffs, consistency with buff uptime, consistency with getting headshots or not. Yeah, all of that. But at the end of the day, most of that doesn't really matter. Didn't really give too much dialogue about the build itself while we're in mission, but I'm not really sure what to talk about with the build. You know, you've got eyes, you see, it kills stuff. Hildryn is our beautiful muscle mommy, my favorite Warframe in the game. I'm very, very happy they made her not raging doo-doo anymore, because she was kind of trash for a very long time. I say that again as a raging Hildryn main. She's my favorite Warframe in the game, and it's not even close. I love her, but she was really bad for a really long time. And now she's actually pretty damn solid. A very, very good frame. I would put her in like an A+ tier if I put her on like a tier list. I wouldn't put her in S tier, I don't think, but I would definitely put her in like the top of A tier. She's very, very good. We do have a lot of broken Warframes in the game nowadays. I feel like half the frames in the game are either cracked out of their minds or total dog shit. There's almost zero in between frames, but that is what it is. So yeah, that's the Hildryn build. If you liked the video, then leave a like and subscribe. And if you hated the video, then leave a dislike and unsubscribe and tell me it was a dog shit video. So I know, I guess. That's gonna be it. I might do another Hildryn video here or there soon. I don't know. I've got a couple other funny builds. I've got all 6 loadouts unlocked on 2 different Hildryns that are Formud and Archon shards. So I have a lot of Hildryn builds. If you want to see more like different builds for Hildryn, let me know, because I got a lot of them. We got a lot of Hildryn builds. That's gonna do it though. So yeah, adios.